Father, I'll begin by asking you to give us your name and just tell us your full name, Father.
I am Jim Reuter of the Society of Jesus.
Arthur Francis Shea.
Bill Kreutz.
Edmundo Martinez.
Francis X. Clark.
John Krebs.
Luigi Moigi. Arthur Andrew Bauer.
Miguel Anselmo Bernat.
My name is Ernesto. My middle name is Chavez. And last name Pagana.
I'm Roque Angel Ferrios Iglesias.
Begin by just talking about your stint here as director in Sacred Heart School for Boys. Now, how many years have you been director here?
I've been director here for 7 years. I came in 71 and they have been stuck with me ever since.
And how has it been so far?
Well, as I told some people, this is probably the closest I've been to a foreign mission. You know, all my work has been in Xavier University or Jesuit schools in the Philippines. Cebu is different in the sense that the majority of our students are Chinese Filipinos, and Mandarin is required. So, in many ways, the school is quite different from the schools that I've worked with in the past. Yeah.
So, Father, as director for the past 7 years, I'm sure you've had a lot of chance to really get to know the parents as well as the teachers and the students. We just saw how you interacted with the students so closely, which I think is not exactly true in other schools even. Perhaps it would be good to share with us some of your experiences or insights, your thoughts about the character of the Chinese Filipino apostolate, of the Jesuits in the Philippines. What do you think makes it different from other apostolates? What are some of your insights about this?
Well, first of all, you know, the Jesuit apostolate with the Chinese Filipinos in Cebu is not new. The first Chinese Filipino converts or Chinese converts in Cebu were baptized, I think, on the first Pentecost Sunday of Father Chirino here in Cebu. So, in other words, our work with the Chinese in Cebu goes back several centuries to the early years of the society in the Philippines. There was a break during the suppression, and it was not until actually some of our Chinese missionaries from China came to the Philippines after they had been expelled by the communists that we resumed work here in Cebu. And in that sense, our work here is relatively new, about 45 or so years back, starting with the beginnings of a parish and then the school. Within that short period of time, I was really amazed that our China Province Jesuits were able to accomplish so much. As you know, the Chinese Catholics in Cebu were much fewer than the Protestants and other Christian denominations. And after 45 years or so of work here, you can see that the number of Chinese Filipino Catholics has really grown tremendously, and perhaps more than just numbers, the impact of these Chinese Catholics on the life of Cebu, I think, has been very real, and I think very crucial. As a matter of fact, my impression is that the key business leaders of Cebu are alumni of our school and part of the Chinese Filipino Catholic community. So it has been a very fruitful and very effective apostolate, and I like to think that the Chinese Filipino Catholics here continue to be effective. They're very supportive of the work of the parish and the school, and they're very respectful. I don't know whether that answers. You're going to edit this anyway, no?
Father, so Father, you yourself mentioned that when you were assigned here, you felt that it was some kind of a foreign mission for you.
That's right.
So maybe you can share with us some of your experiences, some of your insights when you were going through the adjustment period. Was it difficult? Was it, what helped you? What didn't help you?
Well, I did not come to Cebu entirely as a stranger to work with the Filipino Chinese, as you know, in Cagayan. I was very close to some Chinese Filipino Catholics there. I worked with the Jesus in Konghua School.
So Father, you were saying that you worked with the sisters
Yes,
in Konghua School.
but that was more like a consultant, like, really an outsider. And this work in Cebu is my first inside work, as it were, in a Chinese Filipino school. And in many ways, it is different from, in many ways, Sacred Heart School for Boys is different from the Ateneos that I have known. One of the first things I noticed when I came here was that the students were quite formal in their dealings with me. I even got the impression that they were afraid of me. And I asked one of them about this, and he said, it's not personal, it's just that at home, our relationship with our parents is quite formal. That at table, dad makes the decisions. There's no discussion about decisions to be made, and so I think that is also carried over into the school, so that the relationship between administrators like myself and the students is kind of formal. There is less of that give and take, the easy informality that I was used to at Xavier University in Cagayan de Oro. Also, I found this school quite different in terms of discipline. There was great emphasis on external discipline, and that was new to me, and because I thought that you cannot educate people, and you cannot form, especially young people, through fear. I really believe that unless you earn their confidence, their trust, you will not be very effective. So what I did was to encourage them to come more often to my office. I circulate, I spend a lot of time walking around the campus, especially during recess time, interacting with them. And I even bribe them by having candy available most of the time in my office. And I like to think that after all these years, I have a better and I think a closer and warmer relationship with the students. I don't know whether that is helping classroom discipline, because as you know, some teachers feel that students are no longer afraid of anyone in the school today, and it is harder to teach. So I guess we shall leave it to history to decide which approach was better. But I think you cannot treat students today the way we were treated during our student days. Young people today are very different. For one thing, they know much more, and I think they are quite different. And so to use the same methods of teaching and disciplining them, I think would no longer be very effective today. They are very sensitive, as you know, and what I would like to see in our classrooms is a situation where students are treated with respect. I got the impression also before that in child rearing in the Philippines, we are not very sensitive to the feelings of the child. As a matter of fact, one common way of disciplining a child is to shame the child into behaving properly. And I notice many of our students would conform externally, but there's also a tremendous inner rage or anger in many, because I think of the way they have been treated when they were growing up. I would like to spare our students that kind of treatment. And we have made efforts to help our teachers shift their teaching paradigm so that the relationship between teacher and student would be one of friendship without compromising the teacher role, the adult role of the teacher. So in many ways, the work at Sacred Heart School for Boys is different from the work that I have done in the past, because Chinese Filipino homes are different, and consequently the school also has a different atmosphere. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Father, as you also know probably that there is a move to begin a dialogue about the Chinese Filipino ministry. So far, I think obviously you're going to be one of the more valuable resource persons there, especially because of the last 7 years that you've spent here. Not to mention the fact that you're running the school right now. What are some of your thoughts about the ministry of the Jesuits among Chinese Filipinos, especially here in Cebu?
When Father General came here, he gave a speech to the Filipino Chinese community, And in that speech, Father General reiterated the validity of our commitment to serve the Chinese Filipino community of Cebu. And when you consider the important and significant role that many members of the Chinese Filipino community play here in Cebu, in business, in industry, even in the arts, then it seems to me that if we want to continue serving the local church, then we must continue our work among the Chinese Filipino community here. There is tremendous opportunity for evangelization here. The society is respected both by the local hierarchy and also the local government and civic community. I like to think that there is a great deal of trust and confidence in the Jesuits, so that we can, so that I really think that it would be a pity if we were to slow down or to abandon or give lower priority to work among the Chinese Filipino community here. We call this school, this Sacred Heart School, as a bridge between the Filipino and Chinese communities. And I think the image of bridge is very appropriate. And a bridge links two sides of a river, for example. And I think that is what we are trying to do here. We serve as a link between the Chinese community and the Filipino community. And we do that by trying to encourage both sides to remain, to retain their identities. And one of the things that we can do in our work here is precisely to discover what is most of value in the Filipino and Chinese cultures, and then, without losing their identity, help both cultures to profit from the strengths of the other. And I think that is important, namely that we should look upon our work among the Chinese Filipinos not in terms of assimilation. It would be a pity if, for instance, our Chinese Filipinos were to lose their cultural identity, and then just become sort of part of the, this mainstream, whatever it is. So I think what we need to do in our work among the Chinese Filipinos is to encourage both sides to retain their identities, but enrich each other with the values and principles that each culture has.
Father, you've begun to talk about the confidence and trust enjoyed by the Jesuits here in Cebu, not just among the Chinese community, but also among the local hierarchy, the business community, and so on and so forth. The other subject I wanted to talk to you about was the unique or special role you think of the society here in Cebu. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we can look at the contribution of the society here in Cebu from different perspectives. In terms of service to the local church, we can serve by being available to the local ordinaries and to the clergy as spiritual directors through the retreat house. We can also give very valuable contribution to the church by being available as consultants. Frequently, the local church leaders consult us about certain issues that face the community. So that is one kind of service that we can render. We can also be of service in the more strictly pastoral area, the parish, the different organizations that we serve through the parish. I think it is important for the society to have a pulpit in Cebu where issues that face the country and the community could be explained to the people in an intelligent way. We also can be of help in the area of local government. Time and again, local leaders, government leaders, also consult us, even ask our opinions and ask for our written assessments at times of certain problems facing the community. Like tomorrow, I will be with the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry meeting where we will finalize our set of recommendations to the government regarding the peace and order situation in Cebu. And finally, I guess...
Time process, such short notice.
No,
Originally, we were planning to interview in Manila, and we should go there often, but I thought might as well.
Yeah.
So, Father, you mentioned, after talking about the business sector, you were going to go on to talk about another sector, I think, when we run out of batteries.
The government, one area where we can help, we can be of service is in the area of availability to government leaders. As I mentioned, tomorrow we will be meeting with the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we will be finalizing our set of recommendations to local government regarding peace and order. So these are the kinds of services that we can contribute. And finally, in the area, of course, of education, Sacred School for Boys is a rather small school when you consider its enrollment and the fact that it is grade school and high school and a vocational free school at night. So compared with the giants like University of San Carlos and San Jose Recoletos, Sacred School for Boys is a very small school. And yet, I think, modesty aside, in meetings of school leaders and administrators, Sacred School for Boys is fairly well respected, and it has a very good reputation. People will tell you whenever you mention the fact that you are from Sacred School for Boys, they will tell you, oh, that is a very good school. As a matter of fact, just the other week when our exchange students from Japan were here and they paid their courtesy call on the local Japanese consulate, the consul there said, "Oh, Sacred Heart School for Boys, it is an excellent school." So it is. We are highly respected. Whether that perhaps we are, whether our impact on the local community is overrated, that's another thing. But the fact is, Sacred Heart School for Boys is a respected school, except in athletics. Well, not yet. We are not yet an athletic power, but Father Hernando is determined that things will be different a few years from now.
Okay, Father, maybe I wanted just to ask you if you can explicitate some kind of vision that you might have for the school, no? Or even if you are not a director, having spent, after your stint, no? Having spent 7 years, what do you think is the direction that the school should take? You mentioned earlier your notion of discipline, which you've been trying to instill among the students. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. We use the image of bridge in talking about the school's mission here in Cebu. And I think that is a very appropriate metaphor, because I believe that a very important role of Sacred Heart School for Boys is to help our Chinese Filipino students be proud of their cultural heritage. As you know, there is a tendency on the part of some to sort of camouflage their Chinese Filipino ancestry. But I think that is sad, because they have much to be proud of and they have much to contribute to Philippine culture. No? So I would like to see our school serve as a bridge between the Filipino and Chinese Filipino communities, and to enrich both cultures by this creative exchange and creative collaboration. Another role of Sacred Heart School for Boys that I see is to serve as some kind of model for excellence. Excellence is a word that you hear so frequently among school people, but I think very few people really know what it means and what it takes to be an excellent school. So I think we have a tremendous responsibility in Cebu to serve as some kind of model or reminder of what academic excellence is, coupled with a commitment to service. Because as I see it, academic excellence is not enough. There are schools that are academically excellent. But I think one specific contribution that we must make as a Jesuit school is through excellence to be of greater service, in the words of Ignatius, greater service to the church and to our communities. That, I think, is what I would like to see Sacred Heart School for Boys accomplish.
Father, my final question would be, as you know, this video is about the history of the Jesuits in the Philippines. So I thought perhaps you would have some personal recollections of one Jesuit that you think has inspired you, has touched your life.
Well, perhaps instead of one, I would just like to mention a couple. I think it is not surprising that I should mention Father de la Costa. I think many of us Filipino Jesuits have really been inspired by him. For a short while, he was socius, believe it or not, to the master of novices, no? When we were novices. And then he taught us a course in history when we were juniors. I recall that after that course in history, we all wanted to be historians. And the other Jesuit who has had also an important impact on my life is Father Masterson. I first met Father Masterson as a high school student in Bacolod when he went there to give a speech. And I never thought that someday I would end up as being his university president. But I think Bill, as most people I think know, no? I mean, I have said that Bill was really a man of vision. He saw the opportunities at Loyola Heights, what was to be Loyola Heights, and moved the Ateneo there in spite of the cries of of so many of our own people about the folly of moving to that godforsaken place that is now Loyola Heights. So Bill Masterson was a man of vision, and I think many of us really have been influenced by him. Certainly, it was because of my opportunity to work with Father Masterson at Xavier University that I also became somewhat of a visionary. Perhaps if I had not worked with him, I would have really hesitated to start the College of Engineering and College of Medicine, among others, because they're difficult undertakings. But I think significantly because of his example, I did have the courage to take those steps. And looking back, I think they were steps in the right direction.
Okay, Father, thank you very much.